broadcasting from deep in the Eublepharis galaxy, on a small planet called Geckonia, east of the Albino Hills and south of the raging Leucistic River, comes the one, the only Gecko Nation Radio.
Good evening, citizens of Gecko Nation. Today is November 30th, 2014. I hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving here in America. And for all you international listeners, I hope everybody's doing well. Black Friday came and went, and I hear there's this new Cyber Monday thing. Kind of think these terms are ridiculous, but whatever. I pretty much hid the entire day on Black Friday in my Gecko room because I'm just a little eccentric about that day, and I just don't want to be part of the madness out there. I feel like people should just be a little more shopper savvy and just order your stuff online and look for sales. And you know, why wait in line for hours and hours just to get a flat screen TV that you could buy the week after and have it shipped to you or something? It's just, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. But whatever, people do that. I hope everybody got what they wanted as far as their shopping goes, and everybody did it safely. Okay, let's go ahead and bring on my co-host, Mr. Tim Walton from Slice of the Jungle. Good evening, Tim. How are you?
What's going on, Dave?
Not too much. How's everything with you?
Pretty good. Crazy family weekend going on. But I heard you're talking about Black Friday deals. You don't want to hear any stories about people getting punched in the face for a new radio?
I saw a couple videos on YouTube and stuff of fights and madness and mayhem, and it's just like reminds me of that little saying, and you wonder why aliens don't stop by and say hello to us. They probably see this kind of
getting a black eye for a new iPod.
I know, it seems so ridiculous, right? I mean, like, what has our culture become? And are we really living up to our potential? And when you see things like that, it's like, oh my God, we're just a doomed species. It's just crazy.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't start off the show talking about politics this week.
Oh, right. I'm not a good politic conversation person, actually, because I don't really follow politics.
I don't want to go anywhere near there on the show.
Well, part of my idea for radio is, Tim, is, doing this show has given me valuable experience being on the air, and eventually, someday, I was thinking about doing a completely different show based on current events, and not really political, but something that just is like it's not just focused on just one thing. It's just a broad-based show. But we could have one night we could be talking about like the whole Ferguson thing, and another night we could be talking about animals or whatever. And eventually, who knows? Maybe I'll feel confident enough to do that. And if I become a decent host, which I don't know, I think I'm getting better at this. We'll see. I don't know. What do you think?
I hope we're putting it together a little bit better these days. But tell us how the show was today.
The New York White Plains Expo today was really, really good. I don't think the turnout was as huge as what I'm used to, but as far as sales go, I was selling geckos, which is always good. I talked to a few other people, and some did good, some not so good. But, I watched people, and people were walking around with animals in their hands, and a lot of people were having fun. And it didn't have that claustrophobic, crammed-in feeling like some of the New York shows do. And that's good because, I'm claustrophobic at these shows sometimes, and, it was just... It was a good show, man. I got to see a lot of people that that we talk to on Facebook and YouTube and other breeders and stuff, which is always fun, getting to see everybody and seeing what they're working on. But you know what? This is the time of year too where a lot of the best animals have already been sold, and breeders are usually just thinning out the remaining stock or getting rid of their last season's breeders and animals that they don't need for the following year. But I think after the holidays, when people have their Christmas money or whatever and their tax money, I think it's going to be a different story. People are going to be really interested in buying stuff. So I don't know. I did good, so I can't complain.
I don't remember. Do they always do it this weekend? Year? Every year?
Yeah, I don't remember it being on this weekend in the past, actually. But I do remember there being. I do remember there being
a weekend to do it.
Well, you would think it'd be good because people are out shopping. So, but at the same time,
I would think that a lot of people travel, and a lot of the people that come to that show are, people, like the local people that wander into the show, kind of, not the hardcore herpers that, those people with families kind of go away this weekend or do family stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of people in there today that were first time, people at the show, and which is cool. You kind of initiate them into the crowd, and you answer their questions, which is you could tell what level people are at just by the questions they're asking. But as far as the people that were there, you have to wonder, like, well, if it's a shopper's weekend, what are they shopping for? I mean, do you think they're going to be shopping for reptiles? Some people were, but I don't know that we really got the true reptile crowd this weekend. But I think I think it's good to have a show before Christmas, before the holidays, and then the next one is not too far after the holidays, which is good.
Right after the New Year.
Right, which is cool. So yeah, so that's usually the best show of the year. That show, and then the one after that, because the one after that, everybody's got their tax return money. So then people feel more comfortable spending. And I understand it, man. I'm the same way. Before the holidays, you don't really want to spend your money foolishly, or you don't want to spend it on things that you don't necessarily need. And but then again, I had to buy things today that I didn't necessarily need. I bought some cool geckos.
What'd you get?
Your friend, who's the guy that breeds those awesome crested geckos? That he doesn't even have a business card. John
Heisen
has a regular. Yeah. Well, I stopped by his table first thing in the morning, before the public came in, and he had this killer harlequin. It was like harlequin cresty, but this thing was like reddish orange and black, and it had that awesome look to it. I don't know what you call it, but I mean, I'm not even a big fan of cresties, but I had to buy that gecko. I mean, it was so nice. I just couldn't stop showing it off all day. I was all proud of myself for finding it.
He always has the best cresteds at the best and at very reasonable prices, and he doesn't advertise online at all. I've actually been thinking that when I get a little photo setup going, that I got to start buying some of his geckos to put online, because I'm tired of sitting next to him during the shows and other breeders coming up like Steve Cimelli coming up and telling him, you could charge twice that if you put it online.
I know. I don't think he wants to do that, though, right? He doesn't want to put that.
Yep.
That energy into it.
He's a professional. He has a great job, and it's totally just a hobby for him. And he likes going to the show and with whatever he has to sell and selling it at the show, and he doesn't care what he goes home. Obviously, he doesn't want to just give his geckos away, but he sells them at a very reasonable price to move them at the show, and he doesn't want to deal with shipping or emails or anything.
Yeah, that is a drain on your sanity, shipping and emails and back and forth, believe me. But that you're right. That's the side of a professional. He doesn't need flashy banners and business cards and all kinds of crazy stuff. He just has awesome geckos. He doesn't even have lights on his table. and his geckos just glow.
The last show I shared some table space with him, and I was thinking, I wonder if I'd be able to sell more geckos if I just bring a light.
I don't think it matters. When you have the best crested geckos at the show, whether they're lit up or not, it doesn't matter.
Well, at the last Long Island show, we were kind of in a dark corner. It isn't as bright as the county center in White Plains, so we literally were in a dark corner. And yeah, of course, he still sold his crested, but I was still thinking, I think I'd do a little bit better. I just got to bring a light next time.
That's funny. I wound up grabbing one for that gecko was only $100 too. And obviously, that's like something you would see online for $300 or $400. And not that I'm planning on reselling it by any means. I'm just so happy I grabbed it. But I also grabbed a couple flying geckos too. I have a few of them here, and I grabbed a couple more females. They're wild caughts, and they looked a little dehydrated, so I gotta give them a little special attention. I really don't like buying wild caught stuff like that, but you really don't see any captive born ones available. So hopefully they'll do well for me, and I'll be able to provide some captive born ones in the future. And it's just an underrated species, flying geckos. They're pretty common, but they're always wild caught.
Yeah, you got to put some out there so when they stop coming in wild caught, we'll have some here that people can still work with.
Right. I'm seeing people buying them too. I think there is a little movement towards them, and I think in the future we'll be able to secure them as captive, born and bred. So that's a good thing. I mean, little by little, a lot of these wild caught species are not going to be able to be imported anymore for whatever reasons. Either they're going to be depleted in the wilds, or regulations, or something. So grabbing some of these now is kind of advantageous, and I think people should be serious about that. And if you're thinking of doing that, try to do it seriously. Get yourself like a few males and several females, and do your research and put some effort into it, so you can be a steward to the species, like I say all the time, and be able to keep a good diverse bloodline going in captivity, because eventually you'll be able to trade with other breeders to keep it. Keep the genetics strong. So yeah, I was happy about that. I seem to have started a trend for budget frogs ever since and I do this all the time. Whenever I buy something different and I post about it, it seems like everybody all of a sudden, oh wow, I got to get one of those too. And so everybody's walking around with budget frogs, and I'm not getting any commission for that, which is kind of upsets me a little bit, because I should get I should get a finder's fee for making it easier to sell budget frogs all of a sudden. But,
you want a budget frog advertising commission?
Well, I posted a video on YouTube. 1,000 or more people have seen it already, and I know several people that saw that video that just said they have to get a budget frogs, and they actually bought budget frogs today at the show because of my video. So, and I didn't get any commission for that. So what's up with that, Tim? I got to talk to these guys.
Do you keep them in your racks with your Leos?
No. Well, I do that for feeding, for when I feed them. I have these little 6 quarts that I put them in. I put some water in there, and because I don't want to feed them in their tank, because why get the water dirty? You make the filter have to work harder. As it is, when they poop, they kind of mess up their water a bit, and keeping budget frogs is kind of tough, especially when they get big, because they're just so voracious. They're voracious eaters. They eat anything and everything, and they eat a lot, and they grow so fast. They literally almost double in size every 2 weeks, and they poop a lot, of course. So, keeping their tanks clean, especially while they're growing up, can be kind of tough. So, trying to cut down on, the food matter in there and their poop is tough. So I feed them outside of their tank, and that seems to help a little bit. So, but yeah, they're in a big tank. I haven't shown it off yet. I will. It's really nothing fancy yet. See, the thing with budget frogs is you don't want to put any kind of really fancy stuff in the tank because they eat it. Like, if you have river stones in there, I used to keep river stones in the tank with my budget frogs when I was younger, and they literally ate the river stones. And the river stones are kind of big. They're like 1 inch in diameter. And they would eat them, and they would literally stay in their stomach. And it's almost impossible to get them to regurgitate that unless they want to regurgitate it. And, so I have nothing on the bottom of the tank that they can ingest. And I don't use any kind of fake plants because they'll try to eat those too. And so it's kind of like a bare tank, but it's very efficient and clean, and they seem happy. But budget frogs are very, very interesting captive frogs. I think even more so than Argentine horn frogs. Yet Argentine horn frogs are much prettier in color. The budget frogs just have a very unique look to them. As far as being called a Pac-Man frog, I think the budget frog deserves that name more than the Argentine horn frog, because if you look at a budget frog, it looks like Pac-Man, and it eats everything like Pac-Man. So, it's a really cool species. So, but anyway, I'm not going to ramble on and on, but folks, I want to let you know tonight we have a great show planned for you, and we have Wally Kern from Supreme Gecko, and we're going to mix it up a little bit tonight. And Wally's very generous. He's a sponsor of our show, and he's a very generous person. He's going to be giving away prizes tonight. I think what we'll do is we'll give the prizes away to people that call in with good topics to discuss and good questions. And keyword is good questions and topics, so put a little effort into it, folks. And we'll give you some cool prizes. He's got some crested gecko diet, and so let's see, what else is he? He posted in the group, Gecko Nation, I shared his post in the group Gecko Nation about what he's going to be giving away. The phone number tonight, folks, to call in is 646-478-5331. And when you call in, it'll ask you, press 1 to speak to the host. If you just want to call in and listen and you don't want me to bring you on the air, don't press 1. If you want to come on the air and participate and get in on the action to win a prize, press 1, and what will happen is I'll see a little question mark next to your name, next to your phone number, and I'll know that you want to be brought on the air, okay? If you don't press 1, I'm not going to bring you on the air, all right, just so you know, because I won't know that, it makes it look like you really don't want to come on the air, so I want to make people uncomfortable. A lot of people are shy. But yeah, look, he's got a 5-ounce container of Bug Burger. He's got the prices next to it. It's worth $8. He's got 8-ounce Super Bite, which is $14. He's got an 8-ounce Pangea Crested Gecko Diet, which is $18, and an 8-ounce Super Cal LOD. I'm not sure what that is. $10, and 1 pound of Superfly, which is $8, and a pound of Superload, which is $15. That's funny. So yeah, guys, get in on the action. We'll have some fun tonight and give away some prizes. I already see the callers lining up, which is awesome. Okay, so before we go any further, folks, just want to make everyone aware of some really important information. And I think I have to quiz Tim, and we do this pretty much every week. Tim, I have a very, very important question to ask you. There's a lot of new people in the world out there discovering geckos and discovering reptiles, and especially geckos, because geckos are just awesome, and they pretty much top all the other reptile species in many of our opinions. Tim, we want these people to have the best education. We want them to know the history. We want them to know the genetics. We want them to know good husbandry. Where do we want to send them to learn all this information, where they can research and do their homework the right way?
We want to get them on Gecko forums.
Ding, ding, ding. You won. You win that every week. You get it right every week, which is awesome. That's right, folks, geckoforums.net. Okay, check it out. And sign up, become a member there. And we are the official radio show associated with Gecko Forums. And also, I'd like to mention that if you love our radio show, if you like our radio show, if you're looking for more media to check out, we have an affiliate, which is Herpentine Radio. Justin and JD do a fantastic job every weekend I think they're on Saturdays or Sundays. I think they've been changing it every week because of their own work schedules, but they do a great show every week, and they've been going strong for 3 years now. They have a 3-year archive of shows. All right, so check out Herpentine Radio, and I think you'll like it. But also, Gecko Nation Radio would not be possible without its amazing sponsors. These sponsor plugs are sincere. These people really are the best at what they do. So you're gonna hear some of them now, and the rest at the halfway point. Check this out.
Gecko Nation Radio is a David's Fine Geckos creation and production. You can visit the show's Facebook page at Gecko Nation Radio. I also have a great family-friendly group on Facebook called Gecko Nation. Apply for membership today. Gecko Nation Radio is sponsored by, and if you're looking for quality food for your dubia roaches, crickets, mealworms, and superworms, look no further than MS2 Premium Insect Chow. Made with reptiles in mind, it contains no dog food, cat food, or chicken mash. Using only vegetable proteins and high-quality ingredients, MS2 Premium Insect Chow will have your feeders making a beeline for it. Contact ms2ent.weebly.com, or it can also be purchased at Rainbow Mealworms and AB Dragons. Dale's Bearded Dragons is your one-stop source for any reptile supply products that you may need, from Exoterra, Zoomed, Rapashi, Repcal, Fluker, and much, much more, and all at 20 to 50% cheaper than your local pet store or big chain pet store. They are also the biggest reptile supply distributor at most of the Northeast expos. Contact them directly online at dalesbeardeddragons.com or message me on Facebook and I'll put you in touch with the owner. Reptiles Express is the absolute best live animal shipping company with great low rates. Debbie is the queen of customer service and will make sure your precious cargo gets to where it needs to. They also have a wide array of shipping supplies from deli cups, snake bags, heat packs, and more. Visit reptilesexpress.com and become a member today. Ohio Gecko is famous for amazing tangerines, snows, and other very unique leopard gecko projects. Thad also has some incredible fat tail morphs available from stingers to starbursts. Visit him online at ohiogecko.com and at expos in the Northeast. He is also the owner of geckoforums.net. Longhorn Geckos is a father and son collaboration. Daryl and Kate Burton specialize in the best Super Tangelos, Pastel Raptors, White and Yellows, and really nice wild types. Follow them on Facebook at Longhorn Geckos and on their new website coming soon.
That's right, folks. And I'd like to remind everybody that if you need dubia roaches, you can get 5% off any order by using the code GECKO at checkout with abdragons.com. All right, so definitely check them out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Mr. Wally Kern from Supreme Gecko. Wally, how are you tonight?
Dave, doing good. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. How's everything going? All right?
Very, very good. Trying to get over Thanksgiving and all the food that I ate.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's kind of that time of the year. I've been looking forward to our episode, and, you know, I think I have a good idea of what we're going to do tonight. You're no stranger to radio, and, you know, doing like a Q&A in the first half of the show I think is a great idea. And first I want to thank you, number one, for being a sponsor of the show, and also for donating the generous items tonight for the prizes. That's just really cool of you, Wally. Thank you.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure. You guys are doing a great job on the show, and it's the least that I can do. Thanks for having me as a sponsor. I just wanted to put in a little plug real quick. You mentioned the Bug Burger as a giveaway tonight, and it's a great insect food. But I tell you what, Marcy from MS2 has the best food out there that you can imagine. My animals, I've used Bug Burger for a long time, and it works great. Don't get me wrong. But Marcy's food is top-notch, premium insect chow, and whatever you give your bugs obviously goes right to your animal. So, you know, Marcy's been doing this for a little bit, and she's got it down pat with her food. So, real happy with her food.
She makes that gut load with love, doesn't she, Wally?
She does, absolutely, and she cares about the hobby way above the business part of it. So.
Right. That's important. She definitely has become a great part of the community, an asset, that's for sure. And, certain people just really stand out because of the energy they put into helping people out there, and she's definitely one of those types, that's for sure.
Absolutely. No, I'm looking forward to the show tonight. It's going to be fun.
Yes. Before we get started, Wally, for people that don't know you, I mean, we've done an introduction on your previous episode, but why don't you give us a quick introduction about who you are and a little bit about Supreme Gecko, if you would.
Oh, absolutely. I've been keeping reptiles for about 10, 11 years now. I started off with chameleons. Love the animals, but just had some issues with their lifespan. It was really hard working with chameleons and how quick they passed away. Beautiful animals, very intriguing behavior. But I shortly after getting out of the chameleons, I got into leopard geckos and then crested geckos, and loved working with those animals and the different morphs and color patterns, and certainly found a little bit of a niche Supreme Gecko and some of the reds that we've produced over the years with the crested geckos. I've kept on that line and introduced other lines, pinstripes and mochas and so on. And I've been keeping the leopard geckos for that time as well. But over the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've expanded my hobby and started keeping some of the other geckos. I think a lot of people get into crested geckos and leopard geckos, and you just have to keep the fire going, whether it's working with a different morph or, like in my case, working with a different animal. So about 4 or 5 years ago, and I think I've told the story before, but I was standing in a Tinley Park show, NARBC in Chicago, big national convention, talking to 3 or 4 other friends, and they were throwing out these gecko names, and I had absolutely no clue what they were talking about. I was a deer in headlights. Just everything was going over my head. So I did a lot of, shaking my head up and down like I knew what I was talking about or knew what they were talking about. No clue whatsoever. So I decided to kind of expand my interests and my horizons a little bit and started keeping some of the micro geckos and just love them. I think a lot of people like the bigger, the better kind of way to go, but for me it was the smaller the better. I could keep more species in a smaller space, and I kind of equate the micro geckos to dart frogs. I think once somebody gets hooked on dart frogs, they expand their collections exponentially. And that
they're like the bonsai trees of the gecko world, right?
Exactly. Once you're hooked, you're really hooked. And again, I got hooked, and I haven't looked back. Still love the crested geckos. In fact, probably I would have to say 75% of our collection is still crested geckos, and the rest is made up of leopard geckos and picted geckos and some of the micro geckos. So, I think I'll always go down that path and keep the business running. And I tell people, the business is there just so I can afford more expensive geckos. So, a lot of fun.
Well, you do have a full-time job, but you just based on your YouTube channel, your gecko collection seems to be full-time as well. How do you manage everything?
There's really only one way, and I saw Kendra on the chat list here, and she's been over to the house many times, and she sees me at shows, and she knows the answer to this question. Excuse me. There's only one way that this gets done, and that's my wife. I think if it were only myself, I would have 1/10 of the collection that I have. My wife Nanette does so much of the just general maintenance and ordering insects and getting them in and unpacking and any of the sales. I tell people that our shipping manager is involved with all of our sales, and that's Nanette. There's no way that I could ever even think about keeping up if it weren't for her. So I have the passion, and I think Nanette certainly does too. She likes to see baby geckos as much as I do, but the person that keeps us all running is my wife.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you're very fortunate. A lot of people just don't have that, and just to have that support and somebody to help you. Yeah, that's really cool, Wally. And not everybody else gives their significant other kudos like that. So that she definitely deserves it. So you should bring her on the air one night and have her talk a little bit about some of her stories and responsibilities that she has over there.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm sure she would get going and tell stories that I don't want her to tell.
Yeah, you never know. She might be pretty unpredictable. Maybe you're smart not to have her on. That's funny. Well, we do have a bunch of callers lined up, so why don't we start with taking a few phone calls?
Sounds great.
All right. I'm going to take the calls in the order that you guys have called in, okay? So those who have been waiting the longest will come on first. All right. Gecko Nation Radio's biggest fan is Elsa. Elsa's been on hold since the very beginning. Let's go ahead and bring her on. Hey, Elsa, you're live on the air.
Hey, you guys. Wally, I was wondering about, is it Lygodactylus williamsii and how big they get? Gram size when they're full adults?
Sure. Elsa, thanks for calling in. You've been a listener forever, I think, on this show, so that's big kudos to you.
Oh, yeah.
Lygodactylus williamsii is probably one of the more common or most known of the microgeckos. It's the electric blue. Beautiful, beautiful gecko. A little bit of history. They came into the country heavy about 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and then they were so common, they were almost like Periodora picta is today, but then they disappeared. Nobody could find them. The imports were shut down. But just recently, the last couple of years, they've opened up a little bit, and there's some being kept around the country. Williamsii is probably my favorite micro. The funny thing is that you'll usually see them come in kind of small, about 2 inches or so, but, as they get acclimated to captivity, get better foods, better kept, they can get to be a pretty nice-sized micro gecko. They can be a giant micro gecko, so to speak. They can get to be about 3.5 inches long. So a nice williamsii you'll always recognize because they'll be really nice and heavy-bodied. The imports will look like a completely different animal. So if you're seeing them 2.5 inches long, that's probably an import or an animal that's really not getting the food that it should.
Good point. Yeah. Some of them, it's just the males that are the really bright blue too, right? Is that true, Wally?
Good point. The males get that bright blue, almost glowing blue. It's an animal that you recognize right away. The females, though, I find it fascinating that the females are just a vibrant green color. I mean, not glowing like the males do, but I think the females are beautiful in their own right.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. Elsa, out of the prizes, what would you benefit from the most? You have crested geckos, don't you?
I have cresties and guards, yeah, and Leos
right.
and tokays.
Okay. What do you say we give Elsa the Pangea crested gecko diet, Wally?
Sounds good to me.
All right, cool.
You.
Congratulations, Elsa. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Elsa's got a strange connection. She kind of has a little bit of feedback on our line. But, yeah, Elsa's been a big fan of the show since the beginning, and everybody loves Elsa. So, cool, Elsa. Thank you very much for calling. All right, let's go ahead and grab the next caller that's been on for, 16 minutes here. Caller from the 609 area code. You are live on Gecko Nation Radio.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Who's this?
My name is Justin.
Hi, Justin. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you tonight?
Yeah, I know you guys are talking about the mini geckos, but I had a question about cresteds, if that's not so much of a problem.
Absolutely.
We have two new crested geckos that the pet store that we got them from was only feeding crickets to, and we cannot transition them to other. Do you guys recommend?
Go ahead, Wally.
Sure, and Dave, I'm sure you would answer the question the same way. The very first thing that I would do is stop feeding them crickets.
I don't do crickets at all.
Yeah, it sounds so mean or detrimental to the animals. If they're used to feeding on crickets, the first thing that you want to do, if you want to get them over to any one of the diets, the complete diets, is to stop feeding them the crickets. A lot of people will stop for a couple of days, but if they see that they're not eating the crested gecko diet, they'll go right back to crickets. You have to, it's almost like a cold turkey process. Stop feeding them crickets or any other insects. What's that?
You got to use tough love on them.
You have to use tough love. You have to wean them away from the insects. Feed them the crested gecko diet, and what I normally tell people is give it a good week and a half. The animals know that they have to eat. I mean, that's their instinct. They'll go to a crested gecko diet. If the animals have never seen the diet, like what you're saying, probably these crustaceans have never seen crested gecko diet. What you want to do is give them about a week, see if they're eating, and give them, what I tried to do is give them half the food that you'd normally feed. Normally a crested will eat about the size of their head every 2 to 3 days, but give them about half that much so that you can see better if they're eating or not. And certainly watch for the animals to poop. But if they're not eating within a week, another trick that you can do is take a little tiny bit of honey and wipe it to the side of that dish so that they can smell that honey. It's not so much the tasting of the honey, it's more the aroma that will bring them over to that dish. If they're not eating in a week and a half, you can certainly call me or email me or one of the other crested gecko breeders. But the next suggestion that I would have, and I'd be surprised if the crested wasn't eating by that time, but the next suggestion I would have is to start hand feeding, and that doesn't mean force feeding. Big difference. Start hand feeding and just dab a little tiny bit over the animal's nostrils and mouth, and they'll start taking the diet. Give that a go every couple of days, and then break away from there and see if they'll start eating on their own again.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a thought, Wally. What if you fed the crickets some of the crested gecko diet so that, before you actually cut them off the crickets completely, maybe they can get a little bit of the taste of that food by eating the crickets that are gut-loaded with it, maybe? I don't know.
Yep. That's a great suggestion, too. Normally, it's just the opposite. I get from people that they've been feeding the animals have been eating the crested gecko, and the person wants them to start eating insects. And my first suggestion is to dust the crickets or mealworms or dubias, whatever you're feeding them, with the diet to give them that flavor and get them used to, that taste. But I'm sure that insects, mixed into the diet is a good way to move them over to the diet as well. Great suggestion.
Yeah, that just came to me. I'm a genius. Awesome. Hey, Justin, thanks for calling in. What kind of geckos do you have besides the cresties, or just the cresties?
We've actually only got the 2 cresties, but I've got 10 Kenyan samboas, a savanna monitor, bearded dragon, focata tortoise, and an iguana.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, then, Wally, from your experience, out of these giveaway prizes, what do you think Justin would benefit from?
And I breed dubious.
If you breed dubious, give that bug burger a try. I started using that a while ago, and I really, I tried, the MS2, and I love the MS2, but I had this around and wanted to try it because I was selling it on my webpage. But I felt that the insects love the bug burger.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Justin, message me on Facebook, and I will put you in touch with Wally and make sure the phone number links up so you just don't have everybody saying the name of Justin claiming they won the bug burger.
All right, no problem.
All right, dude. Thanks for calling in. Great questions.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, have a good night. All right, let's go ahead. We have another caller here, actually a few more. Caller from the 978 area code. You are live on Gecko Nation Radio.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, who's this?
This is your buddy Chad again.
Oh, hey, Chad. How's it going? So it's Chad. What's your last name again?
Hunt.
That's
Chad
right,
Hunt.
Chad Hunt. Yeah, thanks for calling in. What can we do for you tonight, Chad?
Yeah, I have a question for you guys, for myself. Now, now I go to the New Hampshire Reptile Expo, and if I want to venture out, and go to maybe a bigger reptile expo with more geckos or whatnot, what would you guys recommend for like an expo that somebody can go to get maybe more of a higher end gecko or mid-range gecko?
Well, I would suggest either Tinley or White Plains, New York. What do you think, Wally?
I'm right on with that. If you can't find it at any RVC at Tinley in Chicago, it's going to be hard to find it. Another suggestion that I would have is, online is a great source for finding reptiles as well. And not so much, looking for a specific animal, but find a couple of people that frequent, the forums or Facebook and just ask some questions. I mean, I think the Tinley Park's a great source, and walk around and talk to the vendors. I don't think people talk to the vendors enough and just, try to get more information from the vendors. And vending Tinley myself, I know that the thing that I love about doing the show is talking to people. So use that as a medium to ask your questions and find out more information about some of these animals and get a good feel for the animal that you're looking for at one of these shows like that.
Right.
Yeah, and Chad, I have a suggestion. If you can make it to the New York show, which would probably be a lot closer for you than Tinley. Okay, if you can make it to the New York show, as far as geckos go, there are so many good breeders there. Matt is there, myself, Thad from Ohio Gecko is there a lot of, most of the time, and several others that I can definitely point out to you. So, if you do decide to, take a trip down to New York from up north there, get yourself a room for the night and message me, and if you want, you can even hang out at my table too, if you like.
Cool.
Chad, what kind of geckos are you currently keeping?
I have leopard geckos, a white spotted gecko, a blue-tongued skink, and that's about it.
All right. What do you say we give him, let's see, he could probably benefit from the Super Cal, right?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Great gift.
All right. Chad, you're getting the Super Cal.
I have one more question for you guys.
Please,
absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just one more question for you guys. Now, out of all the different types of lizards you have, is there any more that you haven't produced that you wish you could produce?
Oh, you're asking the wrong question. I'm addicted to these things, so yeah, there's a lot of things I haven't produced yet. There's a lot of. Basically, my goal is to have a Noah's Ark of leopard gecko morphs, Chad. So that's part of my affliction that I suffer from.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why my electric bill is as high as it is. But I think I'll answer this first, and then Wally, you can go. I think for right now, I'm really looking forward to developing and selectively breeding certain white and yellows. And I believe we're just scratching the surface with what we can do with the white and yellow gene. And I'm particularly interested in seeing more development with white and yellow bulls and white and yellow bandits even perhaps, and seeing how we can develop it so that we keep the bulls and also get the effect of the white and yellow gene at the same time. So, it's going to take years and years to do that, especially when you mix a bandit with a white and yellow, you're cutting that bandit gene right in half. So in order to get it strengthened up to the 100% again, it's going to take a lot of years of development. So, but that's part of the fun. So that's what I'm thinking about. What about you, Wally? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Chad, I think that's a great question. And Dave, you started the answer out perfectly. What a difficult question to answer. Great question, but it's so intriguing. For me personally, my breeding is separated into two facets. One is, working with some of these different little micro geckos and rarer geckos. So, half of my battle is just to build up the accommodations, the enclosure, to acclimate them into captive breeding. And, this year I had a couple of species breed for me, and that was, a truly exciting experience. The other half is, working with leopard gecko morphs and crested gecko morphs, and, certainly nowhere even close to what Dave is working with the leopards. Fascinating morph that he just talked about. For me, I think with the crested geckos, it would have to be, I've always been working more and more towards the red Harley morph. I would love to see a more white crested gecko with some red patterning, more of a white background with red patterning. So kind of just the opposite of a red Harley. But I'd also like to see some crested geckos with a very pronounced red Harley look, but maybe with thin striping. I'm working on a couple of projects like that, and fingers crossed, maybe in the next couple of years I can see some results from that project.
Yeah. What about you, Chad? What would you like to? What is your ultimate morph?
My ultimate morph, probably maybe like a black pearl or something.
Nice.
That's just old. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, the black pearls are cool. Melanistic geckos, dark geckos, they're really cool. What about an all-black crested gecko? Wally, anybody produce anything like that yet?
Barb Gilbert down in Chicago has about the nicest black crested geckos I've seen. She has a couple of lines of the really super dark. I'm working on some darks as well, but I'm probably years away from what she's already at. So a great breeder, a great project, but I tell you, her black line is outstanding.
Now I have a question about crested geckos. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of the crested geckos crossed with the the Chihuahuas?
Yeah, the Chihuahuas. Yeah.
What do you think of those?
I'll go ahead and take a stab at that one. I'll be very, very honest. The first time I saw one changed my mind a lot. I've always been against the hibernation, bringing two different species together. I think it just confuses people. It confuses the hobby. My fear is that gets out and is crossed with other animals and causes some genetic issues that people don't know about when they buy their animals. But I tell you, the first time I saw one, it was outstanding. Beautiful animal, reds and oranges, and the look of a crested gecko, but different colors. I'm still not sold on them. I'm still not a big fan of the crossbreeding, but it is a beautiful animal. I'll admit that.
I heard that they don't live a long time.
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anything about their longevity, but again, just so everybody's aware, you can't take that cross back to a Chihuahua or a crested and get viable, you can't get babies from them. Yeah.
Oh, really? They're sterile at that point?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I have a question about that. When they're adults, do they have the crests of a crested gecko, or are they lacking that?
Chad, you've probably seen one more recently than I have. Go ahead.
What was that?
I'm just curious, Chad, if you've seen an adult hybrid, and if they have the crests that a crested gecko has, or not.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen one in real life, but I just saw the cross on one of Brian Barczyk's videos. I can tell you that video because he went to a facility where they had one, so I just questioned it, seeing that we were talking about crested geckos.
Yeah, I saw him at the show today. He was very busy talking to everybody. I'll tell you, that guy doesn't get a break at all. He's just talking nonstop all day long, taking pictures with people.
That's what he lives for, though. That's what he loves.
Oh, Tim's awake. Hey, Tim. Yeah,
Good morning.
He definitely lives for that. Yeah. Well, awesome. Chad, do you have any other questions before we move on?
No, I'm good. right, thanks, guys.
Okay, cool. Absolutely. Thanks for calling, Chad.
Yeah, bye.
All right, we have a few more callers. Oh, we got a bunch, actually. Let's see. Let's go ahead and take caller from the 520 area code. You are live on Gecko Nation Radio.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Who's this?
This is Max from.
Hey, what's up, Max? What can we do for you tonight?
Hey, Max.
Nothing much. Hey, how's it going, Wally?
Doing good. Thanks for calling in.
Yes. So I had a question. I think it's actually about microgeckos, huh? But I was wondering. So I have a lot of other friends who keep micros, and so here's the question for you, Wally. Whenever your micros lay eggs, do you leave them in the habitat to incubate naturally, or I guess semi-naturally, or do you actually pull the eggs like, we do with our other geckos?
That's an outstanding question, and it's always been a struggle for me. It seems like the more I can leave the eggs with the parents, the more success I have. Baby microgeckos are a pain in the bottom to deal with. They really are. They're so small. It's really difficult to find a good enclosure to keep them in. And I'm still learning from this whole process. But I try to leave the eggs in with the parents as long as possible. I'll locate eggs. I'll find them. I'll leave them with the parents. And if I can, I'll try to pull them out after about days or so, and then incubate them on my own. But what I have found over the last couple of years is I don't set them up like other geckos, like leopard geckos or crested, putting them in a medium, hatching them out, moving them to their newborn enclosure. What I'll do is I'll set up the taller, 32-ounce deli cups with a screen top, and I'll set that up with sphagnum moss and peat moss on the bottom, some fake plants, some things for them to climb on. And when the eggs are close to hatching, I'll take the eggs and I'll put them right back down into these deli cups so that when they hatch out, they're right in their grow-out containers. Trying to move a baby that's not much bigger than or as small as your fingernail. And the more you handle animals like that, the more difficulty I think that you'll have. So that's one of the little things that I found, little tips or tricks that I found with microgeckos is when they're about ready to hatch out, I move them into these setups that look just like what they're going to grow off in the next couple of months in.
That's actually a really good tip.
Thanks.
What was your name again, caller? I forgot.
Max.
Hey, Max. What kind of geckos do you currently keep?
I keep micros, I keep coleonyx, and I keep pictus.
Oh, okay. We should talk a little bit about pictus later, Wally, because I had a request from Mike at the show. Maybe we can hit on that a little bit. But for Max, let's see. How about we give Max the Supervite, or did we give that one away? No, we didn't. Supervite. How does that sound, Max?
That sounds great to me.
All right,
Perfect.
cool. Is that cool with you, Wally?
Sounds good to me. Thanks, Max.
All right. Thanks for calling, Max.
Thanks.
See how easy it is to win? All you got to do is call in with a good question, and you're going to win a prize. That's awesome. All right, let's see. We got another caller here. Caller from the 732 area code. You are live on Gecko Nation Radio. Hi, caller. You there? 732. No? Okay. You missed out, 732.
Wally,
All
I have
right.
a question for you. Of all your small gecko species, which are the smallest? The Sphirodactylus?
I had a Sphirodactylus hatch out this year that I think I got some pictures of it, and the animal, honest to God, the baby could fit on my pinky fingernail and still have plenty of room to play basketball up and down the court. They're just incredibly small. It's, when you first start working with them, I think that you need to work with some of the larger ones to get more, in touch with how much they need, what their varying needs are. But these guys, and again, like you said, it was a Spirodactylus. The parents aren't, but I'm thinking they're probably 2 inches at the most. The eggs are teeny tiny, but the babies are so small. It's been a great learning experience for me, working with these smaller geckos, and it seems like the smaller the animal, the more difficult the requirements are, and maybe I just need to get better glasses to see them with. I don't know. It's always a strain.
That's funny. All right, cool. We have another caller here. Caller from the 574 area code. You are live on Gecko Nation Radio.
Yeah, Wally, Pat.
Hey, Pat. How are you doing?
How are you? Oh, pretty good. How about you? I guess I got one question that's I think you recently did a video on YouTube about it, but maybe a lot of people online here might not have heard it. But how do you? I know you recently started messing with the fruit flies, the flightless fruit flies, because of all your microbe collection that you have.
Absolutely.
What is? Well, I just recently started fooling with them myself, and I'm kind of perplexed at how to get them into the cage without making a mess and having them everywhere.
I can answer that easily. When I first started into reptiles, and Pat, thanks a lot for calling in. You're one of my favorite people to read on Facebook. You always bring a smile to my face. When I first started with reptiles, I was keeping chameleons, and the first chameleons that I had were veiled chameleons, and what I found out after I purchased them and talking to other people, and this was one of my blind purchases. Oh my gosh, I want some chameleons, so I'll buy them online and not read anything on them at all. Well, after I first started talking to other people, I found out that they were only about a week old when they came in, and very, very small. There was a great product, and I don't think it's being made by anybody right now, but Pro Exotics made it. It was called Bug Stop, and it was a white powdery liquid that you would spread on the top of your enclosure if you're feeding in a glass tank, which I was, keeping the veils in. I'd spread about 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches of this Bug Stop on with just a paintbrush. And literally the fruit flies would crawl all the way up to this Bug Stop and stop. It was like a Teflon or something to them. So that's a great product. And again, I don't know if they use this or they're making this still or not. But what I've been doing recently, though, is to try to manage fruit flies, I'll dust the heck out of them. So I'll put them into a little beaker that I have for feeding the fruit flies, and I'll put calcium in there and fill it up with, however many fruit flies that I need, and stir it around with just a little shake, a gentle shake, and cover them with the calcium powder or vitamin powder. And I found that with that, obviously not only can they not fly, but they really slow down a lot, and they really don't crawl very much up the sides of the enclosure. So, dust the heck out of these fruit flies, and you'll find that it really slows them down a lot.
Oh, great. One other quick question, if I could.
Yeah.
Sure.
What's the best way to get Bovea cyclura out of bamboo? I'm just doing that to pull your chain, Wally.
Pat's referring to a problem that I had several years ago, where I had some animals. And I tell you, man, if you want to learn from somebody, learn from me, because I've done just like everything wrong in the hobby that you could possibly do. One of the things that you shouldn't do is put bamboo in your enclosure that the animals can get into and then not get out of. And I did that a while ago with some Bovea, and literally had to split the bamboo and break it all the way down the length of the bamboo to get the animal out. And these are super fast animals too. So to say that was an adventure is really something else. Thanks, Pat. Thanks for bringing that up.
Hey, and David, the hatchlings for that species can fit through a 1/8 inch crack, such as is on the doors of the Exoterras, just to give you an idea how small they are.
That's crazy. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to John Boone at the Tinley show, Joe Hupp at the Tinley show about it, and you can't really keep them in the exos because they're so small that they can fit through that 1/8 of an inch crack that's on the side of the doors there.
I'll tell you, if I had geckos that small to worry about, I think I would need anti-anxiety medication, every day. I'd be worrying about those little guys, making sure they have enough humidity, and I'd be so nervous that they would not be doing well that I don't think it would be any fun for me, to tell you the truth.
Well, thank you both for a great show. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.
Thanks,
hey, listen, Max, why don't we let's give Max some Superfly. Can you use Superfly, Max?
Well, it's Pat, but what?
I'm sorry, Pat. Yes.
I'm pretty well set with everything. If I need anything from Wally, I'll make him drive it down here to me.
Okay.
I would love to do that and see your enclosures.
But thank you. I love this show.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. Okay, folks, we are at the halfway point, so we're going to take a quick break, play the other sponsor plug, and we'll come back. I see we have a couple more callers on the line. We'll get to you, folks, and stay tuned for more Gecko Nation Radio. We'll be right back.
Gecko Nation Radio is a David Fine Geckos creation and production. You can visit the show's Facebook page at Gecko Nation Radio. I also have a great family-friendly group on Facebook called Gecko Nation. Apply for membership today. Gecko Nation Radio is sponsored by
GiantLeopardGecko.com specializes in giant and supergiant leopard geckos with a focus on selectively bred exceptional lines of many different morph combinations, including high-end African fat tails and crested geckos. With over 17 years of experience in herpetoculture, Keith Kiggins brings you quality, integrity, and value. Check out GiantLeopardGecko.com on the web and on Facebook.
Supreme Gecko is a great source for crested geckos, day geckos, and other species, including micro geckos. Wally Kern is a top-notch breeder and gecko enthusiast. Visit SupremeGecko.com for his available animals and supplies. Ron Tremper is the biggest contributor to leopard gecko morph making. Known worldwide for his amazing examples of living art, you can now download his Leopard Gecko Care app, his Morph Encyclopedia app called Leopard Gecko Pro, and visit his site, leopardgecko.com, to see where morphs are made. Rainbow Mealworms is the largest worm grower in the world and selling to the public since 1956. If you need the highest quality mealworms, superworms, and crickets for your pets, contact them at www.rainbowmealworms.net. abdragons.com is your source for the highest quality dubia roaches. Whether you're starting a colony of your own or just need feeders for your insect-eating herps, abdragons.com can't be beat in quality or price. They are also a huge distributor of FlexWatt reptile heat tape and have very competitive pricing. Check out abdragons.com online and on Facebook. Gecko Boa Reptiles is your source for the highest quality leopard gecko morphs and wild types, from white and yellows to radars, amazing tremper morphs, and rare subspecies. John is a world-class breeder and extremely knowledgeable. If you're looking for something truly special in geckos, contact John Scarborough at geckoboa.com and on Facebook.
All right, folks, we are back. And I just want to remind everybody, use the code GECKO at checkout with abdragons.com to get 5% off your order of dubia roaches. Also, folks, mention Gecko Nation Radio to any one of our sponsors, and they will likely take care of you. We love our sponsors. They love us. And it's just a big happy thing. So let them hook you up. All right. We're going to get back into our second half of the show here with Wally Kern of Supreme Gecko, and I'm joined with my co-host, Tim Walton. Guys, we have another caller on the line. Let's go ahead and grab this call from the 615 area code. You are live on Gecko Nation Radio.
Hi, guys. This is Jamie.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Hi, Jamie.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Excellent.
Doing good.
Well, I have kind of a different question about the micros. When it comes to photographing and marketing them, what are the special steps you have to take to photograph these tiny lizards?
That's a challenge. There's so many challenges. You know, Dave, you hit on it perfectly with the challenges that you're confronted with their size. And photography is certainly one of the challenges. You certainly can't take them out, put them on a piece of cork bark, go grab your camera, come back, set up your lighting, and flip off 5 or 6 pictures and hope that they all turn out. It's not so much their speed and movement. Once they're settled down, they'll stay in the same position. The hard part is you just can't move these animals. Not that I'm an expert by any means. I'm still trying to learn a lot about these animals and try to do some marketing myself once I get more babies. But what I'm finding is that you have to keep your enclosures crystal clear. You know, I have all of my animals in smaller enclosures, and I mist with water, obviously, and that builds up. So if I'm setting up for a photo session, and again, not that I take great pictures, but what I'll do is I'll scrape the glass, the day before, make sure that everything in the enclosure is set up as well as I can set it up. I'll even take out some of the hiding places that they have and give them maybe one piece of cork bark, excuse me, and come back the next day and feed and the hope that the animals will come out and start feeding and get in a position where I can take some pictures. So I guess my suggestion is clean enclosure, take out extra decor, wait a day, and come back and try to get some shots of the geckos.
Oh, perfect.
Awesome.
Well,
Jamie, what kind of geckos do you keep?
I have cresteds and leopards. But
cool.
I want to get
Okay.
some micros.
Yeah, any particular ones you're interested in?
I'm doing a lot of research right now. I want to get all the research out of the way before I jump in. But there's a couple different ones that I've been looking at, and we'll take that step in a little bit.
Okay. All right. So can you benefit from some Superfly?
Sure.
All right. You're getting Superfly. Cool. Thank you so much for calling in, Jamie. Do you have any other questions while we have you?
Nope, that'll do it. Thank you so much. Great show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. All right. I know Tim has a question for you. Wally, go ahead, Tim.
Wally, I want you to talk a little bit about the lists of species of the most underrated geckos, how you came up with it, what you do with it, and if they're all species that you've personally worked with.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm going to copy a link. If anybody doesn't know what this is, I'm going to copy a link into the chat room. A couple of years ago, Oliver, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Koper, and I think he's been on your show.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, Ollie. Yep.
Yeah, thanks. Was on your show, and he has a website called Raw Dog Reptiles, and he featured for 52 weeks. God bless him for keeping up with this with his schedule, but he featured 52 different animals, some geckos, some other reptiles, and I wanted to do an article on what I thought at the time was the most underrated gecko out there, but I couldn't pick one. I had probably 10 that I was going every day. I would go back and forth. No, I want to do an article on this. So I finally gave up and put one out there, the most underrated gecko, and immediately deleted it when I started reading it because I thought I want to hear other people's considerations for what they think is the most underrated gecko. So I started this a couple of years ago, and I was hoping to do 52, and it never came even close just because of work schedule. But I think I'm up to about 40 now over the last 2 years. And these are animals, these are geckos that other people consider the most underrated gecko in their mind. And it's a really, really fun series, and it's not long. It's not a care sheet about the animal. It's not filled with hundreds of pictures. It's just a real simple, here's a little bit of history of how I got into the animal, why I think it's a most underrated gecko, and a couple of pictures and a link to their site, and of all the animals out there. Again, I think we're up to 40. I've probably kept maybe half of the animals out there, and completely agree with the 20 that I've kept as being most underrated. Again, it was all meant to be fun and introduce people into these new, different geckos.
Awesome, that's great. And that the person who asked, how to kind of get the word out about some of these lesser-known species. That's a great way to do it.
And Tim, that's exactly what I wanted to do. It started off just kind of highlighting a couple of them, but not, it's morphed into more. Here's another one that people just really don't keep, and they should. Some of these geckos are way out there. Like you had Travis on a couple of weeks ago, and he keeps the Satanics. Eoplatus fantasticus, and those are amazing geckos. They're a little bit, on the extreme side for keeping requirements, but Travis wrote an article on the fantasticus satanic for us, and but we also have articles on leopard geckos and a certain leopard gecko morph. I wrote one on raptors, and I think that raptors are as we diversify into all these other morphs, I consider the raptor to be kind of a most underappreciated leopard gecko morph. So there's a huge diversity in these articles. But over and above, it's something that's fun to put out there, and hopefully people will be introduced to these new animals and maybe consider keeping them.
Yeah, and Wally, you really do put a lot of effort into education and just doing fun things for the community. And why don't you tell us about some of the things you do, like the 12 Days of Christmas you got going on now, well, coming up anyway. Why don't you tell us about some of these things you do?
Well, thanks. Thanks for the mention. And Tim, thanks for the mention on the most underrated series. It's a lot of fun. And, I mentioned before that I've kept, different species, and I got into the dwarfs, the micros, just to keep the fire going. Well, for me, it's kind of selfish in that all of this other stuff, the educational part, keeps the fire going. I have a section on our webpage, frequently asked questions, where we have some of the more general questions that started as oh my gosh, I can't answer what happens if my crested gecko doesn't eat the crested gecko diet 10 times a day. I can't do it anymore. I've got to write an article and put it on the webpage and then direct people to that article. Well, I did that with this frequently asked questions and wrote, 5 or 6 leopard gecko questions and 5 or 6 crested gecko questions. But when people ask me the same question, certainly on a daily basis, I still answer them and then find myself at the end, check out the frequently asked questions that we have on Supreme Gecko page. I can't stop talking about geckos. It's a passion certainly for me, and I think that will hopefully keep going for years and years. One of the things that I'm really excited about that we've done now, and this will be our 5th year, is the 12 Supreme Days of Christmas, where starting in December, we give away gifts to hobbyists. It's pretty much as simple as that. I started up the donations and asking vendors and breeders to supply gifts, and I try to provide a link to their page and a mention in our web page, obviously, and on Facebook, and I try to promote their business as much as possible. I don't get the feeling that people are coming to the 12 Days of Christmas and giving gifts because of that. It's to participate in this this annual event. Again, we started off with, in the very beginning, pretty much all the gifts were coming from Supreme Gecko, which was cool. I had a blast in doing it. And this year, I think we're up to about $1,200 in gifts that we'll give away. And it's not just 12 gifts anymore. Thanks. It's not 12 gifts anymore. We'll probably be doing 2 gifts many of the days of the giveaway. And what I require people to do is, what I didn't want this to be is put down your name and I'll do a drawing and provide a gift. I wanted it to be more than that. One of the things that we do is I ask people to go over to the vendor's page and share their page or write something about, why they feel that the vendor is a good vendor and something about, their past history with the vendor, something to spur conversation and talk about the hobby and share this whole experience. So, I try to revolve the whole giveaway. It's not a contest. It's not, do something for prizes. It's literally a giveaway, but, I ask people to contribute to the whole event by writing something on Facebook or writing something on the webpage just to kind of get more into that whole experience. So, again, this will be our 5th year. We're starting it up. There certainly will be more information in this next week, and looking forward to our 5th year.
Great. That's good stuff. I'm seeing in the chat room, by the way, we got a lot of people in the chat room tonight, which is just awesome. Mike Rickett asks, Wally, he wants to know about the food that you feed some of your micro geckos. Do you use pinhead crickets, or what do you feed the tiniest of the tiny ones?
Sure. Again, Dave, I'm going to go back to something that you said about, getting over anxious about keeping micros. Absolutely. And you should. I've brought in some very expensive micros from Germany. And again, learn from me because I've done just about everything the wrong way the first time. I set them up in an enclosure and didn't notice right in the middle of the top a little hole, and within a couple of days, all the geckos were out and about in the facility somewhere. So there's a couple of challenges with micros, and the first is to find an enclosure that is completely sealed off, doesn't have any holes. Pat mentioned, the Bavaria and how small they are in Exoterras. You have to find an enclosure that's completely sealed off, that works for the micros, that you can get access in without disturbing the animals, but they can't get out. Absolutely a must. The second thing is you absolutely have to find the right foods for the micros. My definition of a micro is something about 3 inches or smaller, active during the day. So it's a diurnal kind of gecko. It's not, a nocturnal gecko. That's just my definition. And because they're so small and because they're so active, you have to have a good heat source that they can regulate their temperatures on their own. But by doing that, obviously, they're very, very active. And being very active means that they're feeding all the time. So unlike a crested gecko or a leopard gecko, now that we're moving into brumation, some of us are moving into brumation with leopard geckos and not feeding. These day geckos, these micro geckos, have to be fed every single day. If you miss a day, that's kind of okay, but don't miss too many of those days because they have to feed, they have to be misted, they have to eat. The challenge then is to find a quantity of food, that's available to you all the time. For me, I do fruit flies, so that's my main source of food for the micros. I also have set up probably 6 or 8 boxes, the sweater boxes for mealworms. I don't raise mealworms to feed to any of the geckos. I have the dubious for that. I raise mealworms just so that in any one of the boxes I can put a slice of potato and in a couple of hours pull it back and find all kinds of teeny tiny mealworms for food for these micro geckos. I just don't ever be out of. Yeah, I don't ever want to be out of food, so I have to have 2 or 3 sources going all the time. Another thing that I do, another source of food that I use kind of as a third option is isopods. You can start up an isopod culture in a small 9-quart shoebox. Keep it warm. Keep something over a peat moss substrate and feed them, potatoes and carrots and things like that, and you can get a really good culture of isopods going, which are great for enclosures to clean up the enclosures. But for me, if I'm out of fruit flies and I'm out of, micro mealworms, then I'll shoot over to the isopods and start feeding some of the isopods. I rarely ever feed pinhead crickets, simply because it's just so difficult to keep pinhead crickets alive. It's so easy to keep wingless fruit flies alive. But every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll go down and take 15, 20 minutes to set up 4 or 5 more cultures of fruit flies. Having said that, occasionally, I'll find that my fruit fly culture has crashed and start panicking and have to go over to the micro mealworms, or hopefully not that often, but sometimes over to the isopods. But there's a lot of different little foods that you can find. The key here is that it has to be small, and you have to have a constant supply that you can get to these animals, because you really can't go much more than a day or 2 without feeding them.
Did you ever find those micros that escaped?
No, I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that baby mealworms can work, as well as when I lived down south. One thing I like to use is termites, which as long as I knew the area I was getting them from was not, didn't have any pesticides applied to it. But I found that those really work great with some of the small gecko species.
Tim, are you cultivating them, or are you collecting from the wild?
At the time, I would collect from the wild, and sometimes I would actually bring some, and I would just kind of keep them in a tank for a while, but I didn't actually cultivate them.
But I like that idea because, unlike a fruit fly will live usually about, 12 to 24 hours or so without a good food source. And I don't keep, bananas or anything in the microgecko's enclosures, so they'll die pretty quick if they're in there and they're not eaten. I'm guessing that a termite would live in an enclosure like that for quite a while, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I actually had one time I actually would, for one enclosure, I would take chunks of rotten wood that were already termite infested and just throw that in there, and just every couple of days I'd just break it up a little bit with my hands, and the geckos would go crazy for it. They loved it.
One of my favorite all-time foods for micro geckos, and it doesn't happen that often that I can find this, and I'll guarantee everybody's had this, so I'm probably going to gross some people out, but feeding crested geckos, the diet, once in a while I'll have a dish that the gecko will kick in the back of the tank, and I'll miss it on, when I'm feeding, and that dish with the gecko diet in it will get those little tiny, they're not gnats, but little tiny black flies. They don't fly that well, and they're certainly not fruit flies, but these flies, and again, I apologize for the grossness here, but those flies will get into that crested gecko diet, and they'll lay eggs, and they'll develop larvae. And if I find a dish with those little larvae in it, right away I run with joy over to one of the micro gecko tanks and throw it in there, and they pound this dish. And I feel that it's a pretty good food because they're sitting in this gecko diet that's full of all, it's a complete diet for the crested geckos, so it contains all the calcium and proteins and everything for the geckos. So I think that these larvae are just, packed with all of this nutrition in them. And again, the micro geckos, it's like they put on bibs and grab a knife and fork, and they're sitting on the edge of these dishes, chowing these little worms.
Another wild caught food source that I used was fruit flies. I would just put a small bucket or container with like some old banana peels in the yard for a couple of days, and then I'd walk up to it with a cover and quickly apply the cover, bring it in, put it in the cage with the small geckos, quickly grab the cover off and close the lid of the cage and get some free food that way.
Oh, yeah. For me, that's like a worst nightmare, though, because with the
they would
wingless
contaminate
fruit flies,
your flightless ones, right?
Exactly. So with the wingless fruit flies, here's another funny story from a couple of weeks ago. My wife and I made wingless fruit fly cultures, and somehow a top got on one of the cultures. And I don't know if anybody has received geckos with a screen top, like a screen door top on the top, to give the geckos more ventilation. I don't know why I had this top sitting around somewhere, but we had put it on one of the wingless fruit fly cultures and, put it on our shelf with the other 5 or 6 cultures and never paid attention. I marked the date and then I start watching for it in 2 or 3 weeks to see if they're producing or reproducing, I should say. So 2 or 3 weeks later, I go to the culture and it's like almost empty. But there's plenty of worms in there and everything, but no flies. It was kind of weird. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I looked at the top and here it's, full of holes. It's the screen top. So the fruit flies were literally, going in and going out at their will and, reproducing. So somehow these other gnat things had gotten mixed in with the wingless fruit flies. And it was pretty much a dead culture at that time. I had to throw it out. But I just looked at the top and thought, boy, I'm giving you a really good food source here, aren't I?
Mm-hmm. Dave, are you there? Did we lose you?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm sorry. I had to put the phone on mute for a minute. But yeah, no, Wally, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Pictus geckos. I was at the show today, and Mike, he goes by the name Mike Sixth on Facebook. He stopped by, and he was asking me about the show tonight, and he asked me if we could touch on Pictus a little bit. And, Pictus are I guess you could consider them micros, can you? Or maybe they're a little too big. What do you think?
I think that they're a great stepping stone into the micros. Most of the micros that I consider to be micros in my collection, at least, are more arboreal. They're day geckos, more non-nocturnal, diurnal. But I think that the Pictus is a great stepping stone. Your babies are kind of small. It's not like a leopard gecko or crested gecko. You have to do a little bit of extra work with the baby Pictus to find foods and different enclosures. So I think it's a great stepping stone.
And they're starting to produce some really cool morphs with the Pictus these days. And do you work with any of those right now?
I work with a couple of the different morphs. Some of them are really crazy. You have the males and xanthic, and you have the black eyes and the triple stripes, and it's just crazy. Right now, what I'm working with are more of I'm trying to broaden the stripes of the Picta. So I'm working with more of a stripe pattern animal. I have the albinos. I can't think of the name now. The T albinos, the males. But I'm not working with a whole lot of the different morphs that are sitting out there right now. But there's some beautiful ones, though.
Yeah, the baby Pictus are pretty small. They lay a hard-shelled egg, don't they? It's not like a leopard gecko egg, right?
They do. We keep all of our adults over, and people are going to kill me about this, but we keep the Picta over sand, and we keep about an inch, 3/4 of an inch over of sand. And what we do is look in the sand for the eggs, because the females will find a spot. She'll dig out the sand, she'll bury, and then she'll fill the spot back up with the sand. So it's pretty easy to find the eggs, and that just works for us. I've tried the peat moss, coy fiber, and every other substrate with the Picta, but the sand just works extremely well for us. Never had
Wally,
any impact. Yeah.
Let me just jump in for a second. You mentioned the sand thing. I find it extremely hilarious that when it comes to Facebook groups and when it comes to new hobbyists and stuff, asking questions, and the one thing that gets everybody all riled up and fighting and killing each other is this issue of whether or not sand is appropriate for leopard geckos or not. And a lot of people will say sand is bad, and I'm one of those people. I feel like for leopard gecko, I feel that, why risk the health of your leopard gecko if you don't need to? Why? We've seen so many incidents where leopard geckos can become impacted with sand and wind up dying. We've seen the geckos cut open and dissected, and we see the sand just packed in their gut, and yet people still argue the fact that sand is okay. And worst of all, this sand that they sell at some of the pet stores, this calcium sand, which is proven to not be very good for these geckos, and they argue that it's good. And it's just exhausting to watch this. This topic comes up at least a few times a month, and it's the same. It's the same back and forth. And what have you got to say about this sand issue? Do you have any comments on that, Wally?
The most frustrating, and I'll say, I don't think I can say anything that the whole hobby hasn't said to this point anyways, but the one thing that frustrates me, Dave, is that with the sand issue, the very first thing everybody should be saying with sand is, if you hear somebody keeps an animal on sand, is the last thing you should say is you shouldn't keep the animal over sand. The very first thing you should be asking is, do you have a calcium dish in with that animal? Leopard geckos, and I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure here, and I would greatly anticipate and respect your opinion, but the very first thing people should ask is, do you have a calcium dish in with that leopard gecko? Leopard gecko with a calcium dish will go to the calcium dish to get their supplement. If they're over sand and they don't have a calcium dish, God help the animal, because that's what it's going to do. It's trying to find the nutrients, the supplements that it needs to survive. That's what they do in nature. That's what we see in the hobby all the time. So the very first question that I never see that should be asked every single time is, do you have a calcium dish in with that animal? It shouldn't be, the question shouldn't be, you should not keep that animal over sand, or why are you keeping the animal over sand? It should be, make sure that you have a calcium dish. If a person's going to keep a leopard gecko over sand, I 100% agree with you. There's no real rhyme or reason to do that other than, the ambience of the tank, and they want to see it in a natural enclosure, which really isn't natural either, because, that's not what the animal is used to in nature. But,
right.
I think that we redirect the thing to being, hounded by people with this back and forth. I know more because I've kept leopard geckos for a year and a half, and I know everything about the leopard geckos. On the Repashy forum, one of the most popular crested gecko forums out there, the whole controversy was feeding crested geckos baby food, because everybody, 10 years, 12 years ago fed baby food, and then Repashy came out with their diet, and now we have, a half dozen or more diets out there. So we're moving forward in the hobby, and we're introducing more complete diets to the animals, but everybody fed baby food. Well, the controversy became so bad on the Repashy forums, somebody would come on and say, hey, I'm feeding my crested gecko baby food, and it's not doing that well. What should I do? And just get slammed with, don't feed your animal baby food. That Repashy, or the moderators, actually took the use of baby food off of the forum, so you couldn't type in baby food on the forum, which I found was kind of interesting. And again, it was more about, I have experience because I've kept crested geckos for a long time, so I'm going to tell you not to do it. It was more that than, here's the difference. Baby food has this, crested gecko diets, whatever the brand, whatever the maker, the manufacturer, has this. Now, go make an educated choice.
Right. I mean, that's it. Yeah. It's just so entertaining to watch those sometimes. But And it's the new folks. They want to learn, and that's the sad part. They want to learn, and the way, I'm a little. I mean, that's the way I see things in some of the groups out there, where new people ask these questions that are very common. They're repetitive. They're questions we get all the time, and we get those instant experts on there that just berate the new people and don't even give them a chance to learn. And I think a lot of people get discouraged and wind up leaving groups, and I think we lose good hobbyists right in the beginning when they're faced with these personalities on Facebook that just totally treat them poorly when they're learning the beginning ropes. And so we try to do things differently in Gecko Nation, where that we welcome the new people and we have a lot of patience and stuff. And it's not always the case out there, though, on Facebook. And that's what I like about you.
And we urge them to go to Gecko forums.
Right. Yes, we urge them to go to Gecko forums. But that's what I like about you, Wally. You're very dedicated to education and good information. So I think that's
it really
honorable.
has to be that way.
Right.
It really has to be that way. And it all goes back to anything that I'm sharing goes back to experiences that I've had in the hobby when I started. I remember I'll refer back to the Repashy forum, I made a comment about leopard geckos, and this is probably after a year of keeping leopard geckos. I said something about their cool spot being 95 degrees. And Julie Bergman out in California came back, I got a couple of comments, 95 degrees, you're going to kill your animal cool spot, and another comment about the same thing. And Julie Bergman came back and said, Wally, I'm sure you meant the hot spot. And I read the post, the next day, and I said, oh, my God, I did mean the hot spot. And Julie did it exactly the right way. Well, I'm sure you meant this instead of just, the berating and the criticism, and she did it the right way. So, I reflect back on that and the way that I felt with her approach to correcting me and educating me, I try to push over to other people that are new in this hobby too. Everybody makes mistakes, and hopefully everybody learns from them. So, let's treat it that way too.
And it's amazing to hear the experts jump on a new person bringing up the subject when I'm sure 90% of them have not had any personal experience doing it. Just they know that they shouldn't do it. But when I started with leopard geckos 15, 20 years ago, that's what everybody kept them on. And I personally never had a gecko get impacted. And I used to, have them their whole lives on sand, and I never, ever, I still to this day, I've never personally seen a gecko with a sand impaction.
Well, it's not a certainty. It's just, it's about risk management. Why it's trying to lower the risks of these things happening. I think.
Exactly.
Well, it is what it is. Wally, I think there's something that we should definitely hit on tonight that I've seen pop up a bunch of times recently, and something that you're well-versed in and experienced in, and that's shipping. Shipping, and especially shipping in the cooler months of the year, in the wintertime. Why don't we talk a little bit about some of your methods and some of your tips and tricks to ship safely during the winter months?
Sure, absolutely. I should bring in my shipping manager for this conversation, but I'll see if I can handle it the best I can here. I wanted to talk a little bit about tips and tricks in the hobby, and I'll just mention this one just real quick. If you're going to a show in the winter, somebody shared this with me a couple of years ago, and it's worked out really well. They bring in an empty water bottle or buy a water at the show or whatever, and they have a styro prepared so that if they buy animals, they'll fill up the water bottle with warm water, not hot, but warm water, and then transport their geckos back home in the styro with the warm water bottle. It saves on a heat pack, and it gives the animals just enough heat to make it all the way home without getting too cold. I thought that was a really cool trick, and I've done it a couple of times in the past myself. For shipping animals at this time, I learned from the best, and that was Julie Bergman, again, mentioning, from years ago in the Repashy forums. Julie actually did tests with heat packs, and not just, testing when they were being shipped and their destination, but she put them out in the cold, and she performed several different tests opening the box to find out what the temperatures were. So what I do is mimic what she did, and I've changed a couple of small things, but nothing major. But a couple of things that I'll do in the winter is certainly find out through the whole time period what the temperatures are, both at your location and the destination location, to make sure both, that they're not too cold and not too hot. In the winter, here's the problem. I have a couple of shipments going out tomorrow to Arizona. So I don't just assume that Arizona is going to be about, a comfortable temperature. I look online and I find out what Arizona's temperature is, because I don't want to put a heat pack in the box, because temperatures here will be kind of cool, certainly really cool tomorrow, and have the box arrive in Arizona and sit on some, desk at the post office for 3 or 4 hours in 80-degree weather while that heat pack just continues to warm up the box. So check your temperatures on both locations. I like to use 40-hour heat packs. We'll obviously open them up before we ship and make sure that they warm up before they go into the box. One of the key things with shipping in the winter is we don't ship out if the temperatures are under the high 30s. Anything 37, 38 degrees or warmer, I feel pretty comfortable with an animal getting to the location and being safe. And the last thing I want to ever do is ship an animal that winds up in not 100% health conditions to the customer. So we don't ship under high 30s, 40-hour heat pack. The deli cup is ventilated, obviously, but what we'll do is we'll pack it full of paper towels. So much so that the animal can move around comfortably, but they can't freely move around, if that makes any sense. So they're not going to go from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top. They're going to get nestled in, and they're going to make the 1 or 2 day trip as comfortable as they possibly can be without a lot. What that does is, if the box is jostled, they're not going to go from side to side and hit the sides of the deli cup or the top of the deli cup. They're going to nestle into this paper towel, and they're going to ride this shipping experience out best that they can. We also minimize the amount of spraying that we do in the winter to the paper towels. I think that's a key. As the box certainly will cool down a little bit with cooler temperatures, that paper towel moistened is going to cool down even quicker. So we'll try to mist just as much as we need to get the animal to its location being, semi-moist, with those paper towels being semi-moist. We ship in as small of a box as we possibly can. Peanuts or paper towel wrapped around the deli cup. We put in our card and maybe a note. Close it all up, tape it. I'll be very honest, Dave, I don't write on the box a lot of special information. This is a personal choice of mine. I've worked in shipping many years ago, and I know what shippers sometimes can do to boxes that have special markings. So I don't put on there fragile, live animals. Be very, very careful. I try to make this box not stand out from any other box that's going out shipping. So we won't put live shipments or anything like that. We'll put this end up. But that's about all that we do with the boxes. We make arrangements, obviously, with the buyer to make sure that they're home when the box is coming in, or they have arrangements to receive the box either at the post office or their house. Tried to plan this out as much as possible, all kinds of communication as much as possible, so that both parties know exactly what the other party is doing. Shipping in the winter has its special requirements, and again, I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I'm by far not an expert, but I've had plenty of experience in getting the animals out. And, recently I lost a tail. I lost one animal where the customer wasn't home to pick it up when they said that they would be, and didn't pick up the box for a day, sitting at their house. So one animal in hundreds of animals shipped. Still concerns me by losing an animal, but we've had some pretty good shipping track record, and I'm always looking to improve. But I think if you follow some of these just general directions, I think that you can ship in the winter, not have a concern about that.
That's a good point. I've been shipping for several years now, and I've probably shipped several hundred packages. I've only lost one animal out of hundreds, which is, I think that's phenomenal record. And you get more comfortable with it the more you do it, I think, right?
You do. You get more of a feel. What we try to do with it, and I'm sure that you do this too, Dave, is every animal that's shipped, we try to ask the receiver, how the animal came in. Is it healthy? How are the conditions in the box? Were there any issues? How does the box look? I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can with every single shipment.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's just it. Okay. We are coming near the end of the show, Wally, and I'd like to give you the chance here to definitely touch on any topics that you definitely wanted to hit on tonight before we wrap things up.
Oh, sure. I think that we've covered a lot of different topics tonight. As far as micro geckos, I can't emphasize enough. These are wonderful animals. It's a lot of fun keeping them. They're not common out there. They're rare to find any of the micro geckos around. You just have to look around. You have to ask some people. There's some great groups, great pages on Facebook for the micro geckos. Look under dwarf geckos, or shoot me an email, send me a Facebook message, and I can point you in the right direction. There's some great sites. I certainly have quite a bit of information out there, but they're a ton of fun. But again, I want to point out that they're a little bit of work. The biggest thing is finding the right size foods for the animals, making sure that you feed them every single day, make sure you mist them, but my gosh, have the right enclosure. We had Elsa, I believe, call in earlier and say that she was doing some research before she got into the micros. I think that was Elsa. And I couldn't agree anymore. Do the research on these animals. Find out what their habits are. A lot of them are arboreal. Some of the Spirodactylus are more terrestrial. Find out what their requirements are, how warm, that you have to keep the enclosure. Do as much research on these animals before you bring them in as you possibly can. They're just a ton of fun. You can keep, a lot of different animals in a small, size of a space, just like the dart frogs. They're some of the most beautiful animals out there. If anybody has, just a couple of minutes after the show, go out to Google and look at images of Spirodactylus, just absolutely gorgeous animals. Look up Lygodactylus williamsi, amazing animals, electric blues. A lot of different good sites out there. Again, if you have any questions, go to Facebook and shoot me a message or send me an email.
Yep, and trying to remember, I think in the group, I think the Williamsi is the picture we have. Gecko Nation, yes, it is. The electric blue gecko. Yep, that's our logo picture that I have up right now. So that's what we're talking about, folks. They're incredible. They really are. Tim, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we let Wally go?
Just to add what he was saying, Julie Bergman's website, geckoranch.com, is a great tool, and you get some exposure to some of these rare species, as well as johnboone.com. He has some incredible pictures of geckos you will never see anywhere else, and it's really cool to see some of those photos and just spend some time going through there. But Wally, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your experience and knowledge and information. It's great to be able to steer some people in the right direction.
Yeah,
Thanks,
absolutely.
Tim.
Thank you very much,
Wally.
Wally.
Thanks for having me on. My pleasure entirely.
Well, Wally, you know it. You have an open invitation. If you feel like you have a topic that you think would be good for the show, just message myself or Tim and say, hey, guys, what do you say we do a show on this? And we'll book you right away.
Perfect. I hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight.
Oh, I think they did. We had an awesome turnout. We had over 20 people were in the chat room at one point, which is great. So, yeah, we had some great callers, too. Just an excellent show. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Wally, and we'll be in touch with you again soon, I'm sure. And if we don't talk to you, I hope you have a fantastic holiday and New Year's.
Thanks, and you folks, too. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Take care, Wally.
All right. What do you think, Tim? How do we do tonight?
Great, Dave.
Yeah, I think we did awesome. Wow, the show's. I think the show is definitely getting better and better. Just like anything else, the more practice you have, the better it gets. Definitely shows by our ratings and our listenership. So, thank you, folks out there, for supporting the show and sharing the posts and the links and stuff. Brooke,
and supporting our sponsors as well.
Exactly. And Brooke, I just want to give a shout out to Brooke Pulaski. She shares every single episode link out there on Facebook, which is just awesome. Love you, Brooke. Just so cool. And a lot of people do, actually. There's some dedicated fans that share and share. Folks, it's really hard to grow on Facebook these days without the sharing. So if you like our show, and you listen to it regularly, help us out by sharing the posts that we make on the Gecko Nation radio page. This way we can reach more people that can benefit from the show. All right. So I missed you at the White Plains show today, Tim. I wish you could have made it.
I know, it just it wasn't in the works for this weekend.
Yeah, you think you'll get to the next one?
Definitely. I think, did I miss the last one too? Is that 2 in a row? It drives me crazy when I miss 2 in a row.
No, I missed the last one.
Yeah, that's it.
I missed the last 2 because I wasn't feeling good. So everybody was surprised to see me at this one. They were happy that I was there. So it was a good time. I felt like I had missed it felt like I wasn't there in a while. And it's true, I wasn't. It's there's several months go by in between these expos, so it was actually a while, but yeah. With the holidays coming, the next one will seem like it comes up real quick. Yes, I know. I'm looking forward to the next one. So we'll see you there, Tim. Let's see. Next week, folks, we have Paul Edwards from ProTech Caging. Paul Edwards is just making some. He's basically taking rack building up a notch, and if you want to go check out what he's making. His racks are the top of the line. I mean, they're not cheap. These are for, elite breeders, people with the money to pay for it. These racks are exceptional. They're clean. They're so pleasing. They're just beautiful. Check out ProTechCaging.com. Of course, he uses genuine FlexWatt heat tape, which is number 1 in energy efficiency and number 1 in safety. Don't take chances with those imitation heat tapes, folks. Use the best FlexWatt. Tim, we'll let you go, and hope you have a good night. We'll catch up during the week, bud. Same to you, Dave. Take it easy. All right. Have a good night. Okay, right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and play the outro and come back with my closing remarks, and I got a good song for us tonight. Check this out.
Gecko Nation Radio is a David Fine Geckos creation and production. You can visit the show's Facebook page at Gecko Nation Radio. I also have a great family-friendly group on Facebook called Gecko Nation. Apply for membership today. The jazz music you heard tonight was generously donated and created by Jeremy Turgeon of J&D Reptiles. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for the great musical pieces. You can check out Jeremy at J&D Reptiles on YouTube and on Facebook. And a very special thank you to our news anchor, graphic designer, and audio tech, Steve Barker. All the graphics, audio sponsor plugs, and music overlays were assembled by Steve. Check out Steve on YouTube at BC Barker Creations. He has some terrific videos for the herp community with amazing geckos and snakes.
Please support the U.S. Herpetocultural Alliance and USARC. Gecko Nation Radio is proud to support both of these organizations. Please donate to USARC so that they have the funds needed to legally protect pet owners' rights nationwide. You can donate to the USARC Legal Defense Fund at www.usarc.org. If you would also like to learn about advocacy and how you can take action on a state and local level, please subscribe to the U.S. Herpetocultural Alliance newsletter and blog at www.usherp.org.
Sorry, folks, I'm back. Just wanted to mention that as far as my closing remarks go, micro geckos, if you have the patience and the dedication to learn about the care of these guys, you can create a little micro environment for them to live in. That is just a masterpiece to behold. To be able to observe a little tiny gecko and observe its behaviors, and even, reproduce these in captivity, is just very special. And to learn that skill and to be able to teach others how to do it is definitely not too common today. Okay, it's a lot of species are very easy. We have a lot of like leopard geckos and stuff. A lot of people know about how to care for them. It's these other skills that are kind of needed with these rarer types. So if you can learn a skill with a rare type of animal, I think going forward into the future, that's a very good skill to have. And make a little bonsai-like terrarium for your little micro geckos, and I think you'll enjoy it. So something to think about, right? Well, something different. So I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show. I sure did. It's always a pleasure having Wally on. Wally's one of those guys that very easy to talk to, very knowledgeable, and just a wealth of information, and very generous. Just go on supremegecko.com. Look at what this man puts into the gives back. Look how he puts, gives back to the community. All right, he's always doing something, whether it's informational or just giving gifts and stuff. That's special, and that's rare. So we should go out of our way to support keepers and people like this in the community, folks. All right, they're definitely assets. They're not other folks that contribute nothing. These people are what keeps this community together. Okay, try to be one of those folks. And I wish everybody a good night, and we will see you next week. We're going to do it again Sunday night at 8 Eastern. And for our song for tonight, well, actually, first I want to mention my sponsors. Very important. Dale's Bearded Dragons, biggest and best reptile supply distributor, all the Northeast expos all the way from Maryland up to New Hampshire. Check out dalesbeardeddragons.com and the new FlexWatt heat tape website that is run by them. All right, now you can get all your FlexWatt at one site. Site's still under construction, so give it a little bit of time, but we're putting it together. AB Dragons. That's a little different than Dale's Bearded Dragons. We're talking about AB Dragons now. abdragons.com is your best source for dubia, high-quality dubia fed, really good food, really good pricing. Use the code GECKO, all in caps, at checkout for abdragons.com, folks. Gecko Boa Reptiles, John Scarborough. You know him, you love him. He's a regular guest on our show, very knowledgeable, and is doing phenomenal work with his leopard gecko morphs and wild types and obscure species as well. Check out geckoboa.com, and you will see what I'm talking about. And, of course, Wally from Supreme Gecko, supremegecko.com. You heard him tonight. Check out his site. OhioGecko.com is run by Thad. He's also the owner of GeckoFarms.net. Check out Ohio Gecko. And check out some of his amazing tangerines. He's got some cool snows. He's got some unique fat tails to his collection, Starburst morph he's working on. Really good stuff. RainbowMealworms.net. Biggest worm farm in the world, folks, and they are our sponsor. We are proud to have Rainbow Mealworms on board as our sponsor. Jillian Spence is the goddess of worms, as I call her. She is also just a terrific person in the community. Does so much for us, and especially for gecko people. So check out Rainbow Mealworms and mention Gecko Nation Radio. Great place to get your worms. Reliable, and customer service is second to none. And if you're starting to ship your animals in America, you're going to want to do it with the best shipping company to get your FedEx labels that's going to not only be there every step of the way to make sure your packages are safe and sound and get there on time. You're going to want the best customer service, and that's with Debbie Price of Reptiles Express. Check out reptilesexpress.com. Ship the right way, ship the legal way. Use Reptiles Express. You're going to get the best pricing on your FedEx labels. Okay, by getting your FedEx labels on your own without going through Reptiles Express, you're going to pay a lot more money, and you're not going to be shipping live animals legally. So do it the right way, folks. ReptilesExpress.com. It's free to become a member. Ron Tremper, LeopardGecko.com. He is the man that gave us Leopard Gecko morphs, one of the biggest contributors, if not the biggest contributor to Leopard Gecko morph making. Check out LeopardGecko.com and also check out his apps on for your smartphone. He's got the Leopard Gecko Pro app, and he's got Leopard Gecko Care. The Leopard Gecko Pro app is about to get an update with some really cool stuff. So get on board with those two apps and check out his site to see where morphs are made, leopardgecko.com. We spoke about MS2 Premium Chow. Check out MS2 Premium Chow on Facebook and hit up Marcy Sowers. She'll hook you up. Good stuff. Last but not least, and our newest sponsor, Daryl Burton and Cade Burton from Longhorn Geckos, working on some really select morphs such as Super Tangelos, Pastel Raptors, white and yellows, really cool wild types. And their website's going to be up soon, I think. But for now, you can check them out on Facebook at Longhorn Geckos. All right, folks. Thank you very much.